So today we have my review/guide for the newest healer in NIKKE, Marciana. I'll be going over this character in detail, talk about her pros and cons, discuss how to build and how to use this character, and basically give you guys everything there is to know about Marciana. How does Marciana's healing work, and which characters are going to benefit the most? So Marciana gives a lifesteal buff to her team, and 2 of your allies with the highest attack will also get additional healing. On top of that, she will also provide a good amount of healing using her skill 2 whenever she uses her burst. The amount of healing she provides from her skill 1 not only depends on how many levels you have on the skill, but also on your character's individual damage output. The characters that benefit the most are the ones that have high scaling AoE burst abilities like Haran, and as well as characters that deal a lot of damage in a short period of time like Alice and Laplas. If you are using a certain weapon type in the right stage, so a shotgun unit against enemies up close, and a rocket launcher against multiple enemies, then those characters are going to deal more damage, which also means that they will be getting more healing. I also found that high scaling burst abilities that are also distributed damage, so basically 2B, are going to be the most effective when it comes to getting more healing. What makes this so good is unlike AoE burst abilities like Haran's, where the total damage highly depends on how many enemies are present, distributed damage is a fixed amount of damage that is basically shared between all of your enemies on the field. So regardless of how many enemies are present, you are still going to do the same amount of damage. And because 2B's burst has a very high scaling, you are guaranteed to get a ton of healing whenever you use her burst. Generally, any DPS character will have really good survivability because Marciana's lifesteal buff has a pretty good uptime. Her skill 1 passive has a 3-second duration, and Marciana is able to reapply the buff 4 seconds after it expires. Of course, it will also depend on whether you have Privity or any other ammo buffing characters on your team, but normally, you will only have a 4-second downtime on this buff. And if you are curious about why she has a 4-second downtime, the reason is because her weapon is a semi-automatic shotgun. If you were not aware, shotgun units in NIKKE can have one of the 2 different reload types. You have the ones that I like to refer to as the pump shotgun reload type, so think of characters like Drake and Pepper, the ones who reload their shotguns in small increments. And then you also have the semi-automatic shotgun reload type, which is basically when a character takes a really long time to replenish their ammo all at once. So for example, you have Guilty, Sparkling Summer, and Marciana. So because Marciana has a semi-automatic reload type, she is not able to spam her last bullet. And before we move on to the next one, it's very important that we first talk about the excess healing mechanic on her burst. Marciana is the first character to have the ability to store excess healing on your team. It basically gives your characters more HP, but this is not going to be the same as your typical max HP increase from characters like Mast or Freema. You can treat this as like a separate HP bar or maybe even a temporary shield that your characters can fill up whenever they get excess healing. Keep in mind that the additional HP from excess healing is not going to affect the abilities that scale based on the character's max or current HP. Why even consider pulling for Marciana if you have other healers like Pepper, Helm, and Rapunzel? Marciana actually brings a lot of value because aside from Blank, Marciana is the only other burst type 2 healer that can provide consistent healing. So especially for those players who have Blank but are still waiting to get Noir, Marciana is going to be a more consistent source for healing. For the other burst 2 healer options, you have Uni, who is a character that has consistent healing, but it's not enough to solo heal your team. You also have Biscuit, but her kit is very selective when it comes to which character she is healing. And then you also have Folkwang, who is a really good healer on paper, but she has the problem of having insanely long cooldowns. When it comes to how to use Marciana, you can use Marciana as a healer for your burst 1 tank, for stages where you don't want to use Rapunzel, or maybe you just don't have her. Because if you're running a burst 1 tank, your only good options for consistent healing is either a passive healer like Rapunzel, or a burst 2 healer. Yes, you can run Helm and get healing from her burst, and you can also maybe run Noise, but having 2 characters that taunt enemies will have too much conflict, and the healing from Helm is not consistent enough to keep your tank alive. So in that kind of situation, Marciana is going to be one of the better options. Another way you can use Marciana is in a team with highly insane damage output. This is because the top tier damage dealers in the game are going to get the most value from Marciana's lifesteal effect. Just like what I mentioned before, characters that have insane damage output, and especially the ones that can deal a ton of damage in a short period of time, are going to be the ones that will have great synergy with Marciana. During my testing, my DPS units can heal themselves for roughly 100,000 HP every time they have the lifesteal effect from Marciana, and that is only from normal attacks with no buffs. So for example, whenever 2B uses her burst, she heals for around 700 to 800,000, which is insane. You just have to properly time her burst for when she has the buff from Marciana's skill 1. You can use Marciana in any team formation, but a really good template for team compositions will be a 1-1-3 team formation. You are going to have one burst type 1 unit, and preferably one that has no ammo increase, so that Marciana can apply her buff more frequently. And then of course, you will have Marciana herself. I would say that Privity is the only must-have for most Marciana team compositions, simply because of her ammo reduction passive. But aside from that, you can pretty much be flexible with which character you want to use for the other slots. How good is Marciana compared to the other healers? Honestly, Marciana is actually not as good as I was expecting her to be, and the main reason for that is her reload type. Unlike Pepper, who can basically spam her final bullet, Marciana always has to fire all 9 shots to activate her skill 1. Marciana's healing could be way better, and I would imagine even permanent, if she only had a different reload type. But that is not to say that she is inherently bad. She is still one of the better healers in the game, because her healing is consistent, especially in damage focused teams. She has a 20-second cooldown burst, and she is overall a very flexible unit. I mentioned this in my last video, but one of the main reasons why Marciana is a really good character is because Marciana is very easy to build. You pretty much only have to upgrade her skill 1 and 2 because those are the only abilities that provide healing. You can honestly skip on her burst because if you can't even keep all of your characters close to max HP, then you wouldn't really be getting any value from the excess healing. The defense effect from this is also irrelevant, but if you really want to, you can maybe get this to level 4 at most, but I would say that you are better off spending your burst materials on other units. For the Harmony Cube, Resilience is your only option. I would imagine that a lot of you have this leveled up, so you won't have any problems. She is also not reliant on equipment upgrades because we don't get HP increase from substats, and any damage amplifying stats will be irrelevant for Marciana. You can upgrade her helmet, boots, and chest piece if you want more healing, but overloads are not necessary, especially because you have a chance of getting ammo increase, and that is not a good thing. Marciana is a really good low investment healer, but now that I think about it, calling her low investment is true and not true at the same time. Because yes, you don't need a lot of investment on Marciana herself, but you do need a lot of investment on your DPS characters so that they get more healing from Marciana. As for my recommendations on whether you should pull for Marciana or not, I find it hard to give recommendations, not only because the next 2 characters look insanely good, but also because we are very close to the anniversary. And if you are new to the gacha community, it is a very common practice for gacha games to release a bunch of must-have units in the hopes of draining the players' gems right before they drop something crazy for the anniversary. So what happens is, players spend all of their gems before the anniversary, but then they see another really good character for the anniversary, so now they have to spend more money if they want to get the new one. So for Marciana, I would say that if you already have a couple of really good healers for both burst 1 and 2, then you can most likely pass on Marciana because she is not that much of an upgrade relative to the other healers. Plus you can always try to get her in the standard banner later on. As for my ratings, I will probably drop all my ratings by 1 tier just because Marciana's reload type is just a really big setback. So factoring in every single type of content, she will be right around S tier on average, but maybe double S tier for solo bosses depending on the boss fight. With that being said, that is everything I have for Marciana. If you found this video useful, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.